Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an angel therapy practitioner, intuitive astrologer, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And I'm here today to talk about the upcoming total lunar eclipse in Scorpio and the Mercury retrograde that will be going on from May 10th through June 3rd, 2022. But before I talk about these things, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. The intention for my channel is to provide you with information and tools that will help you align yourself, your emotional body, your spiritual body, and your physical body to the truth of your dreams. Because as we align to those things, the universe and the laws of attraction start to get momentum and things start to move faster. And as we do that, we then kick in the law of allowing, which is where we allow ourselves and we allow others to be whatever's most important and brings about their happiness. So my channel is what I would call a spiritual channel, not necessarily an astrology channel, but there is a lot of content that has to do with astrology. I, for the most part, am a whole sign Western astrologer. So these readings or this information will be based on whole sign Western astrology. So let's jump in. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the total lunar eclipse in Scorpio at 25 degrees. This is a full moon lunar eclipse, as most total lunar eclipses are. And it's the culmination of a cycle that began with the new moon in November of 2021. This is Scorpio. And Scorpio by nature is a very rich, savory, intense sign. It's not very interested in the frivolity of life, the superficial things. Scorpio wants to get down to the nitty gritty. And the moon represents our emotional body. So for me, this total lunar eclipse in Scorpio is going to be extremely intensely emotional as it brings to the surface things that are related to our deepest truths. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about the eclipses, and then I'm going to go through each one of the signs and tell you what house this is happening in for you, what the environment will be. And I'll also do the same thing with the Mercury retrograde. So the thing about this particular lunar eclipse is it feels very much like we've been seeing a series of events. When I look at things, I look at the degrees that things are happening, and I look for the layers and the puzzle pieces. I happen to have my Mercury in Scorpio, so I'm a bit of a detective. So when I look at this eclipse happening on May 15th, which is the actual day, the 15th degree is the Gemini degree. We also have the full moon at the 25th degree, which is the Taurian degree. And we have this eclipse making aspects to the nodes, the south node and the north node. This is very powerful because they're at 22 degrees. And for me, what I see is a real deep look at what I'm thinking. Gemini is my monkey mind in its lowest vibration. It's my everyday activities where I'm running around, where I'm trying to get things done. And I'm not necessarily being present, but more, I feel like life is driving me. It's where a lot of communications come in. It's where my to-do lists come in. It's where my running my kids to, football practice and soccer practice and getting to Costco. It's all that really busy stuff. So this day, the 15th, which is my Gemini, this is where my mind goes. Now I go to Taurus degree of the moon. And to me, that is where, how am I valuing myself? Taurus is ruled by Venus. The second house by nature rules my money, my possessions, my personal history, how I process that history, and thereby how much I trust and have confidence within my own skills. This is interesting again because Scorpio and Taurus are in an opposition by nature on the zodiac wheel. I know I'm kind of giving you a landscape, but I'm trying to show you how my mind works. Because when I look at this, I think that the South Node, the North Node being at 22 degrees is about partnership with who I have been. The South Node represents my soul's habits, my soul's habitual perceptions, likes, dislikes, psychological patterns. The North Node is the balance I'm reaching for. That's why they're always on the same axis in opposing signs. So here, what I'm seeing is a theme of this eclipse bringing up my everyday activities. In many ways, it's reflecting where I've been holding myself in a pattern that may not necessarily be serving me anymore. It may be serving me, but then I need to reflect on that and really look at that. And again, we're talking about the moon, our emotional body. To me, the moon is the most influential of all the planets. I know it zips around the zodiac so quickly, but so do our emotions. They can change on a dime. We can be in a great mood and then hear something and it changes. So the moon really reflects that emotional roller coaster that we're on, that as we learn to drive that roller coaster succinctly, we can manifest more efficiently. So this whole eclipse to me is about evolving past patterns, being willing to recognize patterns that we contribute to through our thoughts, through our maybe even stagnant beliefs that at one point were valid, but now maybe we've outgrown them or we've evolved past them. This particular eclipse feels very much like it's, for me, a push and a pull between the security that I know, whether I like it or not, and the security I can create for myself. So when we're looking at this eclipse, we're going to look at it in the various, I'm going to go by rising sign, but I very much want you to look at your moon as well, and then the sun. So the rising sign represents our perception. Again, very much kind of like the South Node. It represents ourself, the beliefs we have, how we identify with ourselves, how we perceive ourselves in the world. Again, our emotional body is how we nurture ourselves, how we perceive things from our emotional standpoint. You know, some people hold on to things, other people, it's more easy for them to let it go, as they say. And this will be reflected a lot in the various signs. Some just are more forgiving or more like ducks than others. And then your sun sign. This is what we project out into the world. It's the face that I believe we would like others to see. You know, I kind of laugh because when I sit at my, as I call it, my table, and I'm working with spirit, I see myself in one way and I project myself in one way. But when I'm Teri walking around the normal world, I'm not quite so genteel, I'll put it that way. I'm very Aries rising. So when I sit at the table, I'm much more my Libra sun. So the sun is what I believe the face we play for others, or the face that we would like to be and we want to be representative of us to others. So then we go into a Mercury retrograde, which I think is going to be super powerful this year. Mercury retrogrades happen 3 times a year at least. And, you know, Mercury zips around the zodiac so quickly. When we go through a retrograde, it is an opportunity to review. Anything you can put an R in front of. Review, reevaluate, rest, relax, recreation, recreation. And this particular Mercury retrograde is going to start on May 10th at the 4th degree of Gemini. Gemini, again, representing our everyday activities, the way we think, what we speak, what we write, our siblings, our teammates, our workmates, the roads we walk on, the escalators we ride on. And the 4th degree is the Cancerian degree of home and nurturing. So I really think that some of the most powerful energies that we can adopt during this retrograde is to review how we nurture ourselves. How are we really spending the precious days of our lives? Because in our youth, we don't realize how quickly time goes. This retrograde is going to end on June 3rd. Now, we say end, but there's a period before and after the actual retrograde period where the planet is slowing down as it makes its perceived motion change. And this is extremely powerful because the planet anchors in and it becomes 5 times more powerful. In addition to that, the Mercury retrograde is going to make a trine aspect, which is a harmonious, favorable aspect to Pluto. Pluto represents death and rebirth. It rules Scorpio, which is the lunar eclipse that we're having. And it is, I think this is very powerful, but the thing that I think is most powerful is that Mercury is going to station for, I don't know, almost 10 days in completion in this trine aspect, because it's going to move forward and it's going to get all the way to 26 degrees. Then it's going to slow down and it isn't going to move forward to the 27th degree of Taurus until June 7th. So this is a very powerful period of time between, I would say, the beginning of June and the 7th of June to anchor in some really transformational thoughts and plans for a new beginning. Because again, a full moon is always the culmination of something that offers a new beginning. And the key themes that we're seeing here are the degrees of Taurus, which is my self-worth, my how I use my skills. Scorpio is commingling. It's other people's money. It represents like stockbrokers who invest other people's money and inheritances and taxes and things like that. It also rules sex, power, and control. That's a whole other thing we'll get to within the if that's applicable in your houses. So let's get on to where this is going to be happening for each of the signs. Again, we're going to start with the rising sign. I am going to talk about the Mercury retrograde in 2 houses because it's going to start in Gemini, retrograde into Taurus, and then come back into Gemini. So we're going to see that, which is doesn't always happen in each retrograde with Mercury. So that's kind of powerful. So let's start off with Aries rising. This eclipse is going to happen for you in your 8th house. Scorpio is your 8th house. If you have any planets, personal planets, I happen to have a Mercury there. And so I know that there's going to be transformational things in the way that I think, the way that I teach, the way that I communicate. So I would look at how is Aries, what is happening in the 8th house for you would be in some ways how you are investing your money, how you are planning your estate, how you are interacting within your love life, in your sex. There's varying things that could be going on, from the more challenging aspects of using sex as control and power to actually transforming that into the intimacy and the vulnerability that sex provides between humans at an emotional level. So this is very powerful. So something's going to transform in your 8th house. This is a house that naturally rules death and rebirth. It doesn't always mean a physical death. I happen to be, I've had a transit in this house before, and it had a lot to do with my possessions, because I'm going to now go to Aries. Mercury is going to be in your 3rd house and then transiting back into Taurus, which is your 2nd house, which rules money, self-worth, and your possessions, as well as beauty and your voice. But I really wanted to say that I think this is an opportunity for Aries to have an illumination about how they communicate. Do they want to communicate in a way that they're heard? Or is this more of an Arian sort of just, an aggressive sort of download, I'll put it that way, of any frustrations you've had? because this is really an opportunity to transform those things. Because it may even have something to do with a sibling for you, Aries, because Gemini rules siblings, and this is in your third house. So I would really want you to think about any ways that you communicate with people who you already have a tenuous or tense relationship with, where there may already be a little bit of power control or power and control issues, to do your best to think mindfully and also to remember who you are and to use your power as a peaceful warrior rather than just a warrior. All right, let's go on to our Tauruses. The eclipse is going to happen for you in your 7th house. That is the natural house of partnerships. And in many ways, that means that sun is, which it is in Taurus. So this is going to bring a push-pull in some ways within your relationships. And I want to offer it this way because it may feel like an emotional push-pull. The Mercury retrograde is happening for you in your 2nd and 1st house. The 1st house is always going to represent the self. It's going to represent the initial experience as the soul takes on physical form and starts to figure out how it works. So for my Tauruses, I think this is going to be a time to allow for transformation within your partnerships, whether they be contractual partnerships in a professional capacity, or if they are long-term partnerships. I don't always want to go to intimacy, although that, or marriage partners, which is true, but this is social house by nature, the 7th house. So any relationships that you put a majority of your time and your attention into, and are they in balance? Are you being able to express yourself wholeheartedly, Taurus, rising moon, sun, and stelliums? Are you being able to feel valued in the relationship? Because if not, there is a good possibility that when the trine happens between Mercury and Pluto, that there could be a very transformational conversation that could end one situation, but give life to a whole new chapter that feels much more liberating. All right, let's go on to Gemini. Gemini, the eclipse for you is going to happen in the 6th house of service and work. It's also the house of health. So you have an opportunity to really dig deep into your, in reviewing how you participate in your work environment. Are you valuing yourself, or are you constantly trying to provide value for others? If you are of a person who has a certain amount of dominion over others, how are you exercising that dominion? Because this is going to be, again, very transformational. And one of the things that I think this may have to do with Gemini is your physical body and health, because the retrograde is in your 1st house, which naturally rules the self and the body, and the 12th house, which rules hospitals, research labs, retreats, places in private, the bedroom, dreaming, and sleeping. So Gemini, I think this is a real opportunity for you to take time to, during the Mercury retrograde, to really review your 6th house activities. And if you've had, a job that at one point really served you in a way that made you feel materially secure, but at this point the stress is eroding your health, or the lack of feeling movement and physical stimulation is no longer present, or it's fading, then I think it's time for you to allow yourself the privilege of starting to imagine, to take the skills you have and how can we restructure things? How can you rise like the phoenix from this dynamic? We're never victims in life. There are people who play the role of the victim, but we're always co-creating on some level. We're not 100% responsible because we are co-creating. So I kind of think of it as a triad. There's my thoughts, there's the thoughts of the collective, and then there's the thoughts of the individuals that I am interacting with personally. So an awareness of that. And Gemini, if you are in some ways lowballing yourself, there may be just a wee bit of a, I don't want to use the word meltdown, but you may just you just may not be able to do it anymore. You may get very, very tired. And this would be, rather than blowing up, it would be a really good idea to make plans for where you would like your next incarnation to be. Okay, for my Cancers, the eclipse is happening in your 5th house of romance. These are all Scorpio, by the way. So your 5th house is Scorpio. So Scorpio 5th house Cancer is quite exciting, I think. Romance at a very intense and deep level. And I think this is an opportunity, if there has been any superficial relationships in your life, or if for some reason you are not being able to express yourself wholeheartedly, your dreams, your hopes, your, I don't really want to say dreams and hopes, because I mean it in a more tangible way, your sense of self in the way that you enjoy yourself. You know, some people like to do the crossword puzzle, and it may appear boring to other people, but they get a lot of pleasure out of just zoning out into that. So I think for my Cancers, this might be important for you to enjoy things and to take things and focus on some hobbies. The 5th house also represents children. So this lunar eclipse could potentially illuminate or have you come to a cycle in some ways through knowledge or through an epiphany or through some sort of illumination about how to parent your children or your child, especially if it's a Scorpio child, more uniquely, more individualistically, more, and doing so, it might make it more influential or more powerful for you. At the same time, the Mercury retrograde is in your 12th and 11th houses. So there may be something attached to your child's network. The 11th house rules the network, social media. I always see a spider web when I think of the 11th house because, you know, the World Wide Web. So you may want to be aware or be more mindful of what your children may be doing on the web in their bedrooms, because that's the 12th house, and the 11th house is Mercury. Mercury again rules communications. Scorpio rules things hidden and in the dark. So there may, for you that have children, this may bring something to light. Don't let it freak you out. It's more of an opportunity to manage it in a healthy way. For those of you that don't have children, I would say that it might be an opportunity for you to really birth your own personal creativity in your network, the things that you have been dreaming about. Again, that 12th house rules dreams. So let's go on to our Leos. This Scorpio eclipse is going to happen in your 4th house of home. The 4th house is also the house of nurturing and how we nurture ourselves. It rules patriotism. It rules our homeland, our country of origin. We also have the Mercury retrograde happening in your 11th and 10th house. So it starts off in Gemini in your 11th house, and then it backs up into Taurus in your 10th house before moving forward again. I think this is an opportunity for you to, did I say 10th house? I hope I did. I was looking at my notes. Leo, the eclipse is in your 4th house. The Mercury retrograde starts in your 11th house, Gemini, moves into your 10th house of Taurus before it comes back into your 11th house. I think this is an opportunity for you to look at your career and to visit with some old friends, network, you know, kind of even maybe approach it as, hey, I just want to check in with you, you know, nurture your clients, nurture your network, give yourself an opportunity to sort of let the sun shine on them a little bit. And I say that because Leo rules the sun, or is ruled by the sun. There may also be something that this eclipse illuminates in the way that you feel, how you feel power, how you feel control, how you feel your influence is happening within the home, and this may come down to nurturing. If you're nurturing yourself from a place of false bravado, it may be rubbing up against some people in your networks. Again, Mercury is going to be communications, our teammates, our workmates. This is in the house of career and the house of networks. So there's going to be some kind of illumination. And I want to offer you this because when we are aware of our own emotional bodies, and we can in many ways step outside of ourselves and sort of see how we land on others when we express ourselves, that can be a very powerful tool for shifting energy, because everything that's happening between these two aspects is about shifting energy. So this sometimes disruption is the doorway to our dreams. And I think that anytime there's an eclipse involving Scorpio that's ruled by Pluto, there's some disruption going on. But I don't like to really focus on that in a way of being fearful, as much as it is a way of bringing things to the surface, that we're creating speed bumps or creating ripples that you could trip over. All right. So here, now let's go on to our Virgos. Virgo, Scorpio is your third house of teammates, workmates, networks, and networks in the sense of your community, your neighborhood, the ball team you play on. That's where your eclipse is coming in. So we're going to see a certain illumination and culmination of any kind of power and control that people have been asserting over you, or maybe even that you've been asserting over others. We have the Mercury retrograde starting in Gemini in your 10th house, and then retrograding back into your 9th house before it moves again forward into your 10th house. So this is an opportunity to revisit your beliefs, to revisit how you are assessing your own value. I'm sorry, my dog is having a moment on the couch. Lucky, stop it. Sorry, he likes to dig to China on the couch. I don't know why. Sorry. Okay, so Virgo, let's go back to this. Your third house is also what you think. It is naturally ruled by Mercury, your natural ruler. And so this is thinking, writing, speaking, teaching, the things that you're absorbing through the things that you're hearing, and the way other people are teaching you who they are. Because again, we're talking about your 10th house. So there could be some things going on at work that gives you an opportunity to revisit how you perceive your value within the system and on the team or within the department. 9th house is always about beliefs. It's about foreign travel, foreign things, philosophy, gypsies, higher education. And education for me is not always inside of a university, although this house rules university. But now we're finding more so than ever before that life has become the biggest university. So Virgo, I think this is an opportunity to kind of put a button on any place you may feel enslaved and disempowered by or unvalued within that third house dynamic, and allow yourself to shift into the beliefs that you are more important than you give yourself credit for. All right, my Libra risings. Scorpio is your second house. And the Mercury retrograde will start in your 9th house of Gemini, and then it will retrograde back into Taurus, your 8th house, before it moves again forward in the 9th house. So we're going to see a lot for Libra on this 2nd, 8th house axis, which is naturally the Taurus Scorpio axis. So when I look at this eclipse in your 2nd house of self-worth, of value, of your possessions, of your voice, I would imagine that Scorpio's 2nd house voice would be sultry, like Amy Winehouse, really jazzy and kind of, And so I really would hope that Libra allows themselves a voice, whether it's a singing voice or just a speaking voice, but allow yourself the illumination that sometimes in trying to create balance, you're inadvertently undercutting yourself. And as you allow yourself to assert yourself in a more powerful way, it's hard for me to believe that Libra is very dominant, especially Libra rising. I'm a Libra sun, but I'm an Aries rising. So I recognize my Aries rising. My Libra gets dumbed down by my rising. So I would encourage Libra to go through this Taurus 2nd house transformation, meaning to allow your own skills to be of value to others and to see them within yourself so you can shift your beliefs and then in many ways bring more balance into how you I want to say interact with the people that are in your second house, which is your home and your history. The second house is the second house from the fourth house, which gives us a familiar tone to it. We get our self-worth from our family and how we're raised and how we're nurtured. So I think this is an opportunity for Libra to implement more balance for themselves and to see themselves, again, I want to call that this sort of the phoenix rising through the ashes. So if something has felt like it's burning down, I don't know that it means that it's over as much as it's presenting opportunities that you may not have taken because you're so cooperative by nature, or you could potentially also be worried about what other people are going to think about you. And if they aren't, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do in the way of social graces, you may have been in fear of that. And this is an opportunity to be liberated from it. All right, Scorpio. This eclipse is happening in your first house of self. So something started for you back in November of 2021 that was a seed planted. And it was really, honestly, I think it was probably the beginning of the destruction. The phoenix is rising for you. This Mercury retrograde is going to start off in Gemini in your 8th house, and then it's going to retrograde into Taurus, which is your 7th house. And I think this is very pivotal for you, Scorpio, because I feel as if there's something about partnerships here that allows you to be more authentic, allows you to be more of those rich, savory, deep. I think of you like a truffle or a real deep piece of chocolate, like you love it, but if you eat too much too fast, you'll get sick or it'll be too much. So this is very Scorpio, but I feel on some level at the same time that there's the potential that Scorpio doesn't live up to their powerful potential, that somewhere there's been something that has made you feel maybe a little bit nervous or afraid of your power. I'm not sure how, individual charts, but having this be in your first house, this is how you perceive yourself. And I think if we're looking at a full moon and the moon is our emotional body, maybe Scorpio gets an opportunity now to really trust a deeper instinct, whether you like that instinct or not. Because I believe Pluto is really a benevolent planet. Most people will say it's not because it wreaks havoc, but it only wreaks havoc on the lies we tell ourselves, on the predicaments we put ourselves in that could potentially create a situation that requires a metamorphosis. There's always going to be extremes. There's always going to be the criminals and the victims, but I'm talking about the general population. We tend to want to please others and hoping that they will please us. So this may be where you rise like the phoenix in your partnerships and transform in a way that doesn't have to annihilate them, but it does give you a chance to live more authentically. All right, let's go on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this eclipse is going to happen for you in your 12th house. Scorpio is your 12th house. This could really be the culmination and illumination of a healing in some way, of information or something coming through that's bubbled up to the surface that allows you to feel empowered over things that may have felt out of reach, is the way I want to put it. The 12th house is behind the first house, so it's the house of what we don't see. It's kind of the house behind us. It's the house where the fool has gone through the complete physical experience and now is about to be re-engaged into the collective. And so it's a very spiritual house. It represents ancestors. It represents past lives and the ancestors that watch over us. So there can be something that becomes illuminated because Scorpio rules death as well. So here we have a very synergistic relationship between the moon and the house with which this moon is happening in for you. Because there could be these feelings coming up of Sagittarius is the connection to the angelic realm. If you're having like really crazy meditations or really vivid inspirations, I think they're real. And I think that we should pay attention to that. You have the Mercury retrograde starting off in your 7th house. Gemini is your 7th house. And then it's going to drift into your 6th house and then back through. So this is an opportunity for you to really look at how you how you have been in your, hold on. Yeah, that's right. All of a sudden, I thought I had the houses wrong. I want to say it this way because Taurus being your 6th house of service, I feel like maybe this has something to do with food again, health, how you're eating, if you're eating on the fly. If you have inspirations about natural healing or herbal healing, or what feels like inspirations that come from traditional places, ancestral information, that could be very powerful. And then the idea of the 7th house being Gemini is about coming into partnership with this and applying it in your everyday life, giving yourself also more opportunity to research, do your research, study about it. Again, these could be inspirations because that 12th house feels very inspiring. The 6th house naturally rules health. 12th house naturally rules hospitals and research and laboratories. And then the 7th house being Gemini feels like it's about what I'm thinking here and coming into partnership with the idea that I am more than just my physical body. And when I align to that, I'm inspired by spirit in ways that support my physical body. Okay, Capricorn. This eclipse for you is in your 11th house. And I think this is very interesting because we've seen Pluto transiting your house for eons, since 2008. So you've been going through this dynamic of reviewing yourself and how you show up for yourself in leadership and how you create material comfort. And now we see that you're having this Phoenix rising in the house of your networks, the house of the people that see you like humanity. It's a big house. It's a house that rules not the individual, but the collective. And I think you have an opportunity to really rewrite your reputation. And I think that you've been working on that, and we may see that illuminated now. We may no longer see Capricorn as a stoic leader or as a dutiful leader, but an inspired leader, somebody who understands the importance of listening as well as giving orders. This Mercury retrograde starts in your in your 6th house of service, of work, and then it goes into your 5th house of your children. 5th house rules children. It rules your personal hobbies and pleasure. So there's a possibility that when I look at this, that this eclipse brings this more baby goat side of Capricorn, and it may be witnessed by not only your children, but your networks. And therefore it's very healing to you in some way to get validation for your shift. I really want to validate Capricorn because it's not easy for Capricorn to move away from tradition and what it knows, because it's been trained to be a leader in that way. And so here, I feel like this is an opportunity to dig deep. Always Scorpio is going to ask us to dig deep. And once you think you've dug deep, dig deeper. Because ultimately, Pluto is the experience where Luke Skywalker goes into the cave. And as he battles fearlessly Darth Vader and ultimately is triumphant, and Darth's head falls to the ground, Luke reveals that it's only himself he's been fighting. So it's a very powerful lesson. And Capricorn, I think this is a time of synthesis for you. All right, Aquarius. This eclipse is happening for you in your 10th house. Now, I can't help but as I say that, think about the South Node transiting Scorpio at the same time as this happens in your 10th house of career. There's going to be an illumination for you and an opportunity to liberate yourself from maybe structures that are really not serving a modern world, a modern way of doing business. The last 2 years, it has become painfully obvious that the old structures are not applicable anymore. They were absolutely viable at a certain period in history, but they're not anymore. And we're rewriting those. And Scorpio is a fixed sign, your 10th house, and you are a fixed sign. So you may, as innovative as you may believe that you are, you may be very attached to how you have been innovating. And now is a time to maybe let go of that attachment and to allow yourself sort of to be the phoenix that rises. And I want to offer it this way, because Aquarius rules the 11th house of hopes and dreams. And your hopes and dreams for your career, because that's also, what's exposed in the 11th house and in this 10th house transit. You may be wanting to do a shift here. You may start to realize that the currency that you want now isn't dollars and cents, but time and freedom. So, because we have the 4th house and the 5th house being affected by this Mercury retrograde. So it's going to start in your 5th house, which is naturally Leo. No, that's not true. That's Gemini. What am I saying? I was thinking of myself. 5th house is naturally Gemini, and your 4th house will be Taurus. So this is really an opportunity for you to rise like the phoenix from having to, I want to liberate myself. Aquarius by nature is the revolutionary. So I feel as if this is a real opportunity to revolutionize how you nurture yourself, your own self-worth, what feels like home to you, and to allow that to be important and not to play to a game of expectation. And I want to say it this way, because I kind of feel like Aquarius participated in that expectation, but it was okay. It was at a chapter when that was appropriate, but now you may want something else. There's big markers in life that change our perception that we can't perceive until they happen. Buying a home changes your perception. Having children changes your perception. Getting married changes your perception. Having your parents die changes your perception. And it doesn't matter how old we are when some of these events take place. They're transformational. So I think for Aquarius, I think there's going to be some sort of illumination within your career that affords you an opportunity to rethink how you have been living in your home world. Has your work driven your home life? And is it time for more balance there? Okay, let's go on to our final sign, Pisces. Pisces, the eclipse is happening for you in your 9th house. The 9th house naturally rules beliefs. It rules education, higher education. It's the gypsy. It's the nomad, the wanderer, the explorer, I think of it. The priest, the judge as well. And then we have the Mercury retrograde starting in your 4th house of home and then drifting into your 3rd house of Taurus. I think this is an opportunity for Pisces to really look at, again, I want to kind of go to the 4th house being the house of self-nurturing. And now I look at your 3rd house and I want to say, are you hanging out with people that really serve you, that have similar interests and ideals, that want the same things that you want? Pisces for me is a little bit sketchy, and not in a negative way, but they're vulnerable. You rule the 12th house. It's such a spiritual house. It's a house where we can be absorbed. That's why I say it's right before we go back into the collective. It's ruled by Neptune as well. So during this time, you may find a huge transformation in your beliefs, and your beliefs may in some ways stoke something inside of you that makes you feel as if there will be some, I want to say, some sort of criticism from the home, or from the 4th and 3rd house would be home and neighborhood, siblings, people that are in our everyday life. So I want to offer it this way, because I think this may be an assumption that Pisces is making. So as the illumination in your 9th house of beliefs reveals itself, you may find more commonality than you had originally anticipated. And the resistance that you feared that kept you quiet and feeling slightly alone may end up opening you up to a whole new chapter of acceptance and nurturing. So I really want to kind of transform the idea of what Scorpio represents and what the planets that rule it represent. Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio, and everybody just looks at it as a warrior. but it's the peaceful warrior. It's the Brotherhood of Christ. It's the Knights Templars. It's people who war for a spiritual cause and the right of others. So I want to transform that and say that this is now a seasoned energy. And Pluto, while it feels so traumatic to walk through some of the challenging things that Pluto brings before us, but most often, if we're willing to dig deep, we'll see that Pluto is offering us liberation as well, to rise into a more authentic place for ourselves. Because when the planet of death lives in the house of other people's control, there's going to be a calamity at some point, or you'll just be absorbed. And I don't think anybody wants that. So this is a really, really powerful time to take the reign of your life, take the reins of your own life and start to drive in the direction you want. And whether you realize it or not, the stars are aligned for you to succeed. And the only job you have is to keep your eye on the prize. All right, guys, that's it for me for now. I'll be back quicker than you think with another video. I also do word vibration of the week, although we took last week off, and keep your eye on the prize for Brave Heart meditations and all sorts of other fun things that are going to come up. And if you'd like to book a reading with me, my information is below. Feel free to reach out. I am available. All right, everybody. May you be at peace with your choices. That's my new tagline. And I think this lunar eclipse is going to be the beginning of being at peace with our choices.